Hi guys, I'm going to talk about the neck and shoulder girdle a little bit with you here, and I'm going to try to diagram out some of the anatomy for you and some strategies for drawing this area. So if we look at our model here, we can see a front view, and we can see the curve of the neck, and I'm just going to reinforce that. There's the cylinder of the neck right there, and here we have clavicle 1 and clavicle 2. And we have the trapezius and the trapezius. So you can see that the neck as a cylinder fits into this space between the clavicles and the trapezius. It has to feel like it comes down and acts like the bottom of a cylinder in this area. And of course, we have the interruption of the thyroid cartilage and the tracheal cartilage here as well that breaks up that cylindrical nature of the neck. And remember that we always have the sternocleidomastoid muscles on either side. So let's talk a little bit about the clavicle first, as we look at this shape here. And we're going to notice that one of the things that you want to look at when we look at the clavicle is that it is a distinctive S shape to it. Now, this is more noticeable if somebody's leaning, tipping towards you. When somebody's at more or less at eye level, that S shape will look more foreshortened and will look more linear, more straight across. So we're seeing kind of an in-between view here with our model, but a way to think about the clavicle, if you think about brackets or think about the crossbow or something like that, the head of a crossbow, we want these two, want this symmetry. They're independently sort of moving. And in terms of form, they're going to look something like this. We're going to come across. There are three sections to it. Then it's going to rise and go back, and then it levels off towards the shoulder. And it is kind of a flattened cylinder, something like that. And then there's another one on the other side, and it just repeats. So another way I always describe this as being sort of like the handlebars on an old BMX bike or something like that. You can just kind of picture the handlebars here and tassels coming out the end. But just like thinking of that form, but being able to articulate at this point right here. They can move independently of one another. So as we look at our figure up here, we can see where the beginning of the clavicles are. They're right here. Now the clavicles articulate against the sternum, and the sternum is in this area, and the sternum is made up of three parts. And the first is called the manubrium, the second is called the gladiolus, and the third little bit is a bit of cartilage called the xiphoid process. And that's that strong bone right in the middle of your chest. So the clavicle is going to articulate against this part of the manubrium, the top of the sternum. And it's going to move, you can see on this figure how it moves across, and then it goes up slightly. It's not really dramatic because we're almost at eye level with him. And then it levels off, and you can see this bump, and that's pretty normal to see that bump right there. And when you see that, you're seeing the top of the clavicle as it goes back towards the scapula bone and the acromion process. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then it repeats on the other side, comes across, goes up, and then levels off like that. So here we have the neck coming down, and we can see the muscle of the sternocleidomastoid, and we can see how it branches right there. And one finger of the sternocleidomastoid goes to the sternum, one goes to the clavicle, like that. It repeats on the other side. And where those two fingers of the sternocleidomastoid meet above the sternum, you get that hollow, that sort of U shape. Again, this is the trapezius. This is the big muscle on the back. We'll see that from a back view. And then thyroid cartilage here. Your hyoid bone is right there. And down here, this sort of cylindrical or cone-like shape of the tracheal cartilage. The thyroid cartilage is that sort of Adam's apple, that prominent kind of V shape, very angular, whereas the tracheal cartilage is going to be a little bit more rounded, cylindrical, like that. Okay. Now, those are the muscles that you're going to see. That's the bones you're going to see from the front. Now let's take a look at. Let's get rid of that guy for a second, and take a look at this new group, and we're going to look at a back view. And what we're going to notice from back here, if we look at this diagram, you can see that we can see some of the clavicle. Well, we won't see the clavicle from the back, but you can see its relationship to the scapula here. The outer part of the clavicle meets up with this outer part of the scapula. Now, this is a very important little point called the acromion process, and I'm going to show you why that's important in a second. But the scapula is essentially this kind of triangular shape. So it has these two vertical lines that move like this, and then we have this a little bit almost horizontal move up here, and then we have essentially that 45-degree angle that I was talking about earlier here. And then this wing, it extends out beyond that triangle, and it extends beyond towards the outside part of the figure, beyond the clavicle as well. And the clavicle and that acromion process meet in the at that point. So if we kind of take a look over here at our figure, we should see that the scapula is going to be in this area. Okay, and then he's sort of tilted a little bit, so we can see that we're going to get a little bit of a slight angle to the scapula in that case. And then the other thing we want to talk about back here are the muscles that you're going to see. And the key one, again, is that trapezius muscle. So again, if we look at our diagram here, we can see that the trapezius starts up here. It kind of comes down along the spine, the cervical vertebrae. It moves outward towards that acromion process. It attaches all along that edge of the scapula. And then right at that sort of inner corner, it pulls down and forms that V shape. So again, we'll look back at our figure here, and we can see the line of the trapezius as it comes that way, and we can see it over here. Now he's twisting his head, turning his head extremely hard to the right. So in this case, that trapezius is going to be here, and we can follow it all along. And then it's going to follow along there, attach, 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 attach. And then right there, along that part, you can see where that shadow is. It's going to turn and go like that. So it's going to create that sort of diamond shape of the back. There are other muscles here that are important, and that is going to be the infraspinatus and the teres major and minor. So the infraspinatus is going to be this muscle that's sitting here on the shoulder blade, and then the teres major and minor is going to be this muscle group right under here. And so you can see, let me get rid of that for a second. You can see this little kind of crease right there, and that's because there's a muscle that's tucking up underneath the arm, and that's that teres major and teres minor. And over here you can see it as well. So let's take a look at another quick view. And let me see if I can do this really quickly. So we'll get rid of that. And then there we go. So I wanted to show you, actually, I want to show you this guy for a second. Let me get rid of that. Okay. So just a couple of things worth noting. Again, talking about the articulation of the clavicle. And here we see a figure who is putting a lot of pressure. There's a lot of tension in the shoulders. So the shoulders are pushed up because the weight is being dispersed down through the wrists. And that causes, excuse me, causes the shoulders to move up. And as a result, you can see the clavicles changes. It's no longer a horizontal. It comes up quite dramatically like that. And the other side, excuse me, is doing the same. And the other thing worth noting here is when the head is turned so extremely, what happens is the mastoid process, which is here, which is the beginning of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, we're going to notice that it becomes almost vertical, or it becomes more of a straight line. Now, normally that muscle curves, follows the contour of the neck from the back to the front. But when you turn your head strongly, it becomes more of a straight line. Let's take a look at another view. Let me get rid of him. And let's take a look at this. So what I wanted to show you here is just a little bit more detail about that thyroid cartilage and the tracheal cartilage. So this probably explains it a little more clearly. You can see that really strong V shape of that hard cartilage, and you can feel it on your own throat. And then the more cylindrical feel of the tracheal cartilage. And I think this guy sort of illustrates it pretty nicely. So you can see the lump or the Adam's apple area. They call it the laryngeal prominence. This whole thing as a form is called the larynx. And then we're just talking about these different parts of it. But that really prominent V shape here, and that notch, and then that sort of more gentle but stronger curve cylinder of the tracheal cartilage. And that's just like a, so it's more angular here and more gentle here, and it's just sort of sits on top of the overall curve of the neck. So that cylinder of the neck being interrupted by that larynx area right there. Let's take a look at another image that I have here, and that is this one. Okay, so where'd he go? Is he visible? I can't see him. No, he's gone. Anyway, I can't see him. But just going to make another point about the articulation of the clavicle. There he is. Okay, hello. So this guy, he's pitching forward. He's sort of leaning his shoulders forward. And what that does, and what you're able to see here pretty clearly, is the movement, how the clavicles, they're a little bit deceptive. When somebody's at eye level, they look level. You can't tell how far back this point is from this point. But when somebody leans forward, you're going to see that you get this strong movement, that sort of bracket shape I was talking about, or a crossbow shape. So it's something that you want to be aware of, that when somebody tips forward, the elliptical shape of the top of the rib cage becomes more obvious. The clavicles are back here, and together they form a kind of ellipse of form, with the clavicles being like that and the scapula being like that. And then the neck fits into that area and comes forward out of it. Anyway, I'm going to cut that off now. Hope this helps. Please look at the information about what you're doing for this week. There'll be a sketchbook assignment, which is to do some master copies. And then I would like you to do some classwork, which is going to be to draw your own neck and shoulder girdle, your collarbones. And I'll give you some instruction on how to do that. But there'll be two things due for the 13th of April, sketchbooks and classwork. Okay, so as always, if you have any questions, just add it to the discussion group and in the appropriate place, and I will keep looking at it and try to get back an answer to you as soon as possible. And of course, join me on Tuesdays and Thursdays for office hours on Zoom. If you cannot make those, but you still want to talk to me, communicate with me. I'll make some time to talk to you one on one. However, I have to do it. Okay. All right. Enjoy.